Silent Hill is one of the most important and best horror games of the PlayStation era and possibly beyond. While most Silent Hill fans think Silent Hill 2 is the best, for me, my favourite is still the original. You play as Harry Mason, who is taking his daughter to the small tourist trap town of Silent Hill. He crashes his car and comes to just in time to see his daughter walking off into the fog. He gives chase and then things get weird. What makes Silent Hill stand out from most other horror games is its oppressive and otherworldly atmosphere. Whereas Resident Evil is grounded in reality, at least somewhat, with monsters that present a physical threat and follow a certain set of rules, loose as they are, Silent Hill is more about breaking the rules. It's snowing in the middle of summer, the roads out of town have collapsed for no explainable reason, there's a nightmarish otherworld made of rust, and the whole thing makes little sense. Gameplay wise, everything is more loose than other games like Resident Evil. You seem to have more momentum and also take a little bit longer to get up to speed. You're a lot more maneuverable during combat. While it's possible to strafe, you won't really use it, but the ability to move while aiming, as well as melee attacks having light and heavy attacks, it adds a great deal of fluidity to combat and makes melee viable against certain enemies instead of a last resort. Although it lacks the laser precision of Resident Evil, the game rarely, if ever, demands that of you. You won't be making super tight dodges regularly. The chunky PS1 graphics are great. Sure, Harry might run like he has a cork up his bum and have hands big enough to clobber the game's monsters to death with, but once you get past that, the graphics seem to add to the game. I know it's cliche to say it's more scary when you use your imagination to fill in the blanks, and while I wouldn't go that far, having these vague humanoid, skinless somethings shambling towards you works well with the PS1's low-res visuals. Specific enough to know what kind of thing it is, but vague enough to leave you unsure. One thing I want to say though, over the years I've heard various myths about the Silent Hill series. One is that it's not a game where you shoot monsters and hit them with rusty pipes. And another is that the game doesn't have any jump scares. These things aren't necessarily bad. I only bring them up because fans sometimes downplay these elements, presenting the games as something they aren't. And I disagree with the idea that these elements should be ignored or never discussed. Speaking of things never discussed, one of my few genuine complaints with the game is the doors. It's not unusual for areas in the game to have dozens of doors, many of which can never be opened. That's fine on its own. The problem is that, as far as I know, there's no way to tell if a door can be opened or not other than to check every single door in the game. Why wouldn't they have some easy way to tell at a glance, maybe a bar across, or have the doorway bricked up? It's not like Resident Evil where it has to be something that makes sense. Small gripes aside, the game holds up well and it's a lot of fun. Still as playable today as it was back then, and it's still atmospheric despite the PS1 graphics. Well worth giving a shot.